kingdom life and kingdom building. So in other words, we need to be friends from those that are outcasts. It doesn't matter. Jesus died on that cross for all of us. He died so that we all could have a chance to come boldly to the throne of grace. He died that if we professed him, if we believed that the Father raised him, that would give us an opportunity to be saved. So we need to develop those friendships with the least likely people, is what I'm saying. And just like Jesus gives this compassion to all men, to all women, to all children, we being fashioned in the likeness of God, we're supposed to do the same thing, especially when we say that we are believers. So hopefully we can take something from this message, this Bible study today, Sunday school, I'm sorry, that will be pertinent in our lives going forward. So we're here in verses 1 through 10. So verse 1 reads, "Now when he had ended all his sayings in the audience of the people, he entered into Capernaum, or Capernaum, some say Capernaum, some say it's Capernaum. So it says when he ended, so that means he had completed his discourse, because Jesus was on the mount. And we're talking about the Beatitudes. So when he had finished this discourse with them, there was a great multitude of people that followed him from all over. So after he took notice of this multitude, that means a great number of people, he decided to change directions. So he changed his position. Jesus decided that he would go up in the mountain and he would teach them. We need to understand, if we look in Luke, the 6th chapter, verse 14, we'll find that Jesus had recently appointed him 12 disciples. Or shall I say, he picked 12 disciples and he appointed them apostles. So then Jesus came down with them and stood on a plain, according to Luke 6 and 17. When that multitude came to Jesus, they came to him with two purposes in mind. They came to hear him and they came to be healed. We can find that in Luke 6 and verse 17. So now we have Jesus with a multitude following him, coming to hear him and coming to see him heal people. That means that we know that someone of the multitude came to touch Jesus. So when he saw this massive group of people following him, that's when he started speaking about the Beatitudes. And once Jesus finished this Beatitude speech, he began to speak a parable. And if we look in chapter 5, Luke 5 and 39, he said, "No man also have drunk old wine, straightway desire new, for he said, the old is better." But prior to that, he told him that the new wine must be put in new bottles. And he said, both are preserved. So no man taketh new wine and put in old bottle. So he spoke in parable. So it says he had an audience, which were the people. They came to hear. So Jesus spoke some words, or these words, and he spoke these words to the people. But we got to understand that what he spoke, it wasn't always in private. Sometimes it was in public on the mount. And when he spoke, sometimes the disciples were right there with him. But the multitude came from all over. So Jesus had things that he spoke in private to his disciples, and he had things that he spoke openly to the public. Because as we know, they were not, he was grooming the disciples to understand what it is that he was speaking. So if he had to groom them, how is it that he could have spoke some things that he spoke just privately or privily to them? He could not have spoken publicly because he would have had to take the time to groom those people, to groom their ears so they could understand what it is that he spoke or what he was speaking. So we know that the audience that Jesus spoke to, it was the people. We can find that in Luke 6, verses 17 and 19. And we know he spoke in the company of his disciples. We know that this multitude of people came from places like Tyre and Sidon, or Tyre and Sidon. They came from Jerusalem. They came from Judea. And they came to hear him, and they came to be healed. So then we know that Jesus enters into Capernaum, which was a village in Nahum, a town that was in the northwest seashore of Galilee. This is where Jesus made his headquarters. We can find that in Matthew 4 and 13, Matthew 9 and 1, and Mark 2 and 1. But what we find out is that this city had a military installation, and it was under the command of a centurion. And I'm going to say it must have been a decent sized place because the tax collectors had their office there. We can find that in Mark 2 and 14. There was a higher officer of the king, Herod Antipas. His residence was there. There was a synagogue built there for the people. And verse 2, and a certain centurion's servant who was dear unto him was sick and ready to die. So this centurion, this was a Roman soldier. He was not a Gentile. They were against the Jews. So a centurion normally was the captain of 100. That's what a centurion was. He was a Gentile. And he had no likings or no dealings in the Jewish religion. But he had a servant that was dear. That means he was close. He was a servant that was special to him.